Hi, good afternoon. This is Anjana Shankar, and I have with me today Mr. Indrika Ratwatte, the Regional Director of Asia Pacific for UNHCR, who will talk to us more about solving the Afghan refugee crisis in Pakistan. Welcome, Mr. Ratwatte.
Thank you very much, Anjana. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Could you just elaborate a little bit on the solution strategy for Afghan refugees in Pakistan that you spoke about?
I think the three governments of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, together with UNHCR, got together in 2010, 30 years after the Afghans first came into the host countries, and said, how can we carve out a road moving forward? And the three governments and UNHCR came up with a strategy which has three basic pillars. One is the solutions part, which is how does one facilitate voluntary repatriation for refugees to go back? Second, how does one ensure their sustainable reintegration inside Afghanistan? And third, how do you support the host countries and the host communities that for decades have been sharing this burden? So the solutions strategy for Afghan refugees is around those three pillars. And we went to the international community with that approach, saying, now let us make a collective investment and an engagement around these three fundamental pillars, which are the solution strategy for Afghan refugees.
There has been a dwindling number of Afghan refugees who have signed up for voluntary repatriation. I think from 14,000 last year, number has come down to 6,222.
Yes.
Are you concerned about those?
Indeed, this is an issue of concern. In the early years, in 2002 to 2005, hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees went back in anticipation of the nation building, of opportunity, despite the challenges that existed in Afghanistan. But as you know, over the years, the security situation has remained dynamic and volatile, and the Afghan government has made lots of progress in trying to build and develop Afghanistan, but challenges remain. So I think Afghan refugees have decided to take a wait-and-see approach to make sure that they have access to livelihoods on return, health, education. So I think until these elements are addressed more robustly in Afghanistan, the repatriation will continue to be minimal. And that's why we are trying again together with the three governments exactly to address that gap and lacuna inside Afghanistan. And together with the Afghan government, we have identified 20 what we call priority high return areas where Afghan refugees originate from in Afghanistan and where some refugees have gone back to. And we are asking the development partners, the Afghan government, and the humanitarian partners to invest in these priority return areas in very simple things like primary health access, primary education access, and livelihood. Development agents of change, and they are part of building Afghanistan. So that investment is really important, and that's what we are trying to do in having programs for education and skills for Afghan refugees in the host countries that give them the skills and the capacities when they go back to reintegrate.
See, many Afghan refugees have come on record and spoken about their fear of going back. And in the past, there has been reports about forced repatriation of Afghan refugees. So how do you look at the scenario, especially with the escalation of violence and political instability in Afghanistan? How do you think it will impact the voluntary repatriation?
This is a very good question, Anjana, because that is a consideration for sure. I mean, all refugees who go back want to be ensured first and foremost, as you say, of physical safety and security. And that's a prerequisite. And where there has been escalation of violence, for example, within Afghanistan, internal displacement in 2019 was at its highest. Civilian casualties also resulting from the conflict is quite high. So these, as you say, are elements of safety and security which need to be addressed. And in areas where this conflict takes place or the violence has escalated, clearly refugees don't go back. So that's also another reason for the low repatriation. But I believe that the ultimate solution that enables large-scale repatriation is peace and security and political stability inside Afghanistan. And we think and hope that present discussions going on will lead and pave the way for that. The Afghan government wants that, the Afghan people want that, the Afghan refugees want that. So indeed, that is a critical investment that's needed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ratwatte.
You're welcome.
Pleasure talking.
Thank you.